Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Falkirk Council Planning Committee meeting within Grangemouth Community Education Unit, Abbots Road, Grangemouth, on the 4th of January at 14th of January at 10 a.m. The meeting was conducted both online and in person in accordance with Section 43 of the Local Government Act Scotland 2003. And this meeting will be live streamed on YouTube at www.falkirk.gov.uk/live. I'm the convener of the committee, Councillor Alf Kelly, and I'm happy to welcome and congratulate, if I can get my teeth in right, congratulate our new Deputy Convener, Councillor Ian Saintler, on his appointment to the position. Welcome, Ian. The other members of the committee will introduce themselves. The first members in the room, beginning with Bailey Kerr. Bailey James Kerr.
Gordon Forrest.
Councillor Margaret Anslow.
Thank you. And online?
Bailey Buchanan.
Councillor Jim Flynn.
Councillor Fiona Colley.
Councillor Gary Bowes, and I apologise for not being here in person. I've got a flu, as you can maybe hear in my voice. I didn't want to spread it between the committee members, the officers, and obviously the members of the public.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Bowes. And the officers on my right, Stephen.
Hi, Stephen McClure, Planning Officer.
Gavin Bowen, Planning Officer.
Edel Gregory, Planning.
Whittle, Development Management Coordinator.
Richard Broadley, Senior Planning Manager. Ian Henderson, Legal Services Manager.
Arlene Fraser, Committee Services.
Jim Miller, Committee Services Team Leader.
Carly Tolan, Committee Officer.
Okay, thanks all. Can we go into any apologies?
Thank you, Convener. We have apologies from Councillor Murtagh.
Thank you. Bailey Kerr, you had something?
It's not the greatest sound, Convener, when our colleagues were talking there. It was very hard to hear when they were even just saying their names. Just to maybe either turn that off or turn it up a bit.
Right.
Thank you.
I think that's it done. Carly, thanks. Okay. Next item of business, number 2, declaration of interest. Members should declare any financial and non-financial interest they have in any item of business at the meeting, identifying the relevant item and the nature of the interest. Is anyone any declaration of interest? Councillor Bowes.
Thank you, Convener. In consistency, I have recused myself from the items 4 and 5 on previous occasions, and I believe that I have to do the same again today.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, we'll continue on to the minute of the last meeting held on 12th of November 2025. Can we agree the minute, or has there anybody got any problems with any of it? We agree? Agreed.
Agreed.
Thank you. Before we move on to the items, item 9, where I'm calling for an unaccompanied site visit to this before so I want to continue it for a site visit. The reason is that it's important for the committee members to actually see the site, because it's one of these difficult ones that it's not quite as easy to read it. Is anybody any objections to going for a site visit on number 9? Councillor Colley.
Yes, I just wanted to concur with your view on that, Convener.
Thanks very much. So we'll continue that. And so anyone for deputation for item 9, the Rove Loan, Dairnell and Head, they're not usually hanging about if you don't want to, but you're more than welcome to stay and listen to everything else. Also, item 7. Item 7, I'll pass on to Mr. Henderson regarding that.
Thank you, Convener. I'm just wanting to let the committee know that we've had a request from the applicant. So the request is by Manor Forest Limited, and that is that this item be continued to the next meeting of the committee, not considered today. And that is due to a very sudden family bereavement. So I'm in the hands of the committee, and it's obviously a decision for the committee members whether or not to accede to the request by the applicant for a continuation. Thank you, Convener.
Thank you. Councillor Forrest.
Hesitation, and I agree to that. And our sincere sympathy to the applicant.
Mr. Stewart. Barry Kerr.
Just to concur with Councillor Forrest.
I think
We're happy to continue.
I think it's unanimous then that we continue this item 7. If any of the deputy MD's here for the deputation for that one, they can go if they wish or again stay. Thank you. So then we move on to the items of business, which is number 4, P220592 stroke LBC for Mr. John Fotheringham, reversing reconservation at Newmarket Street, Falkirk.
Convener, I've obviously recused myself for these 2 items. I don't know whether where you are, if they want to take me out, or if you want me to drop me out and somebody can phone me and to come back in.
Okay, it's fine. Are we going to drop out or is he? Right. Yeah, if you just leave just now, we'll book you back in. Thanks, Carly. Okay, so if we go to Officer McClure.
Thank you, Convener.
Present the update.
So members will recall this application was first presented to committee in March last year, when it was continued to slides and was then presented again at September committee, along with today's agenda item number 5. It was agreed at the September committee to allow additional time for the applicant agent to submit further information in regards to the outstanding items noted in section 4 of the update report today. It was agreed by committee that the outstanding items and information should be submitted by the end of November. End of November 2025 to allow for the applications to be brought back to the current committee. The applicant agent did submit by mid-December a viability statement and further information on external works, with these items still being under assessment at present. The applicant agent also did look to engage further with the building standards and the requirements for the conversion, particularly in regards to the fire safety requirements. However, this is a complex issue, and due to the current capacity of building standards, this item is still outstanding. As such, the applicant agent have requested an extension of time by another 2 months to allow this information to be submitted. Given at this stage the applicant agent do appear to be progressing matters and have engaged further with building standards, we would recommend allowing for the further extension of time, as currently we would still not have enough information to fully conclude the assessment of the applications. Okay, thanks, Convener.
That's it. Thanks, Stephen. We have a request for a deputation to this item. Do we agree to hear the deputation? Nobody objects to that. That's fine.
Sorry. Is the deputation going to be speaking on why there is a need for a continuation, or is it in the detail of the application itself? Because if we're going to agree to a continuation, then there is absolutely no point in listening to a deputation on the details of the application.
Okay, I don't think we're actually looking for the details of the application. The only reason we would have the deputation is if they want to explain their part in the continuation. Okay. Councillor Colley?
Yeah, I had a similar question about whether the deputation was about the detail of the application or about the continuation itself, because if it's about the continuation, then that's one thing, but if it's about the application, then we'd just be hearing it. It doesn't make sense if we are going to agree to continue or not agree to continue, but I don't know.
Agreed with that. Councillor Flynn, is it? No. Okay. So first are we happy to accept the continuation?
Agreed.
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 Right, so we're agreed. Now, does the deputation wish to speak to the continuation? Yes. Okay. Do you want to get the deputation up? And this is only to speak to why there's a continuation, not on any other subject of the application. Position. Give me a touch. Morning. Could you just give your names and your position, please?
I'm Scott Gibson. I'm the agent.
I'm John Fotheringham. I'm the applicant.
Okay, thanks. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Okay, if you'd like to begin your deputation, please. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
You have 10 minutes.
Thank you. Generally, we're here to respectfully request a further short continuance to allow final outstanding information specifically relating to fire safety to be submitted and assessed. There was 5 areas identified in the last committee that required attention. However, these aren't really applicable now, as they've already been addressed in the last one. The main issue again is fire safety requirements. Again, I'm just going to briefly explain why we are requesting a continuation. We're actively engaging with Falkirk Council's building standards team, but unfortunately, due to current staffing and resource pressures within the service, we have been unable to finalise the fire strategy in time for this meeting. This delay is entirely beyond our control, and we are fully committed to resolving it. And therefore, we ask for a short extension of time to allow for these discussions to be concluded and any design implications to be properly addressed. I don't know if you have anything to say, John.
Yes, thank you. And thank you for allowing us to speak today. Part of the reason we're here today is we're waiting for details of fire suppression being approved by building control. There's been a multitude of staffing difficulties within that department, and I now believe a very good and very competent building control officer has been appointed to this application. The position we are now in is that we've not been able to get the expected direction from building control, so we have submitted 5 different options for separating walls. Once one of the options has been approved, we will then incorporate them into designs. Then we return that to building control, then building control issue them to the fire brigade and planning, then the fire brigade arrange a visit, then the fire brigade decide, then building control are informed, then building control liaise with planning, and building control will eventually approve things. Now, that's a lot of things to happen to conclude the assessment of this part of the application. We've paid the fee for this service over 20 months ago. We waited forlornly for several months for responses from the previous building control officer. So can we make some progress and not waste the committee's time? Can we get a commitment today of, say, a 2-week turnaround for documentation to submit to building control? Can that be possible, please? So we're trying to provide 6 quality homes, high quality homes for 6 families to help solve the national housing emergency that we've got. We're trying to move forward and get clarity, but we aren't getting any clarity. Looking at the list of outstanding issues, last March, committee members asked for the planning department to provide a list of outstanding issues. This list was not forthcoming. We have repeatedly been told you already have the list. When we were given a list following the committee's request, it was an incomplete list that was months out of date. Then more and different issues appeared, but they weren't added to the list. They get mentioned in a very vague way in several different emails. But it doesn't get better. Now, the list that the committee asked for has been made neither clear nor useful in any way. The contents of the list are now listed as all internal and external works. No details about what things are okay and what needs attention. It's just all internal and external works. It's not helpful. It doesn't help anyone make progress. It's a waste of the committee's valuable time. When I've brought up similar issues in the past, the response has been, you already have that list. We don't. And the response to the committee has been, from the case officer, I don't remember that. And also, I don't know why they are saying that. Then things were instead said to the committee that were not relevant to this application at all. Although the case officer has written a lot of words and speaks a lot of words, much of it is hard to understand. And at the previous planning committee meeting, members were presented information as facts when it was no more than speculation. An example being the committee was told the windows need to be changed. The windows need to be changed. When in reality, after the planning committee meeting, when I asked for the statement to be investigated, the outcome was the windows don't need to be changed. But if a variety of things don't happen and some other things do happen, then other things don't happen, only then will they need to be changed. But the committee was given speculation dressed up incorrectly as facts. No one should want the committee to be given misleading information, but that is what has been happening. Returning again to the outstanding issues, can we see today, the complete list of outstanding issues with comments regarding exactly what is outstanding? If it's not available today, can a meaningful, complete list be provided within, say, a week? Thank you.
Thanks very much for your deputation, guys. Will one of the officers want to speak to that, please?
Yeah, just in terms of for the committee, the recommendation is quite clear. I think there has certainly been a flux in building standards staff. We're recruiting on that now. That's been resolved. As both the case officer and the applicant's agent has said, the fire safety element is extremely complex, particularly after Grenfell, in terms of building regulations. So a reasonable amount of time is needed once that's submitted to assess that. And the report's quite clear that we think that's reasonable, and that's why the report recommendation is happy to accede to that recommendation. And that's what's before members today. There are other matters on the list there which are listed in section 6.1. I think if there's any dubiety from the applicant or the agent or the client, I'm sure after today the case officer could either resubmit or re-clarify the outstanding list of items. That's been rehearsed at a previous planning committee, and there's been communication since the last planning committee. The case officer may want to come in, convener, just on that point, but I certainly don't think there's any issue if we require to resubmit that, if there's any dubiety through the agent or client. And in terms of timescales, the recommendation is clear that the recommends committee agree a further 2 months to allow the applicant to submit the information. And clearly in timescales for coming back to committee, it is complex information and the committee lead-in timescales, so we'd probably be looking, depending on advice from our governance colleagues, that may well be, a committee at some point, April, more likely May, I would imagine, given the committee lead-in timescales. I hope that helps the committee answer that. As I said, convener, the case officer may wish to come in on some of the points that the applicant has made.
Thank you, officer. Mr. McClure?
Yeah, I mean, I think previously in terms of the internal external works and information and lists, again, I'm not entirely sure what the applicant's referring to. We've provided as much as we can as obviously planning officer. We're not agent, we're not ex-agent, so I can't go into the very specifics of everything. It's a listed building. Any works external that are carried out, any works internal being proposed, they just all need to be included within the application. We've provided the same list to the agent several times, so I'm not really sure what further information we can provide over to them.
Perhaps we could leave that till after the meeting if you meet with the guys and keep up.
Yeah, we can certainly speak to the agent.
Yeah, probably better than trying to do that in
the agent. Yeah, it was
format.
Provided information that agents asked for.
Okay, thanks very much, Stephen. Bailey Kerr, you would want to speak there?
Cool. That was more to officers than the applicant, so I'll wait to the applicant and agent communicate this.
Okay, thanks. Okay, guys, I hope that partially answered some of your questions. I apologise if the council were amiss. We were building standards people. Of course. Is there anyone else got any questions for the deputation? No. Okay, thanks. Thanks, guys. Oh. I'm used to having my left hand side.
Thank you. Teething problems with the new system, convener, I think. So, and for the new layout. So, first of all, thank you to the deputation for coming in today. Some of the information you've given us this morning presents some challenges, some concerns from my perspective. The initial report that we had as a committee was in front of us on the 12th of March last year. Within that committee report, there was a significant amount of information detailed in there, including but not limited to a line within the report that states that no information had been provided on a specific issue. This is why we're now at the stage where we still don't have the relevant information and we're looking for it. Well, we've already agreed as a committee to a continuation. So could you perhaps expand and explain why no information had been provided on several issues, perhaps for the agent, if not the applicant, to answer?
Yes.
Well, the difficulty is there's lots of words and very long paragraphs provided, but it's difficult to understand their meaning.
So I'm going to stop you there, because if you've gone into developing this, surely you should be aware of what the requirements are.
Yes, and I've been trained by Historic Environment Scotland to know what the requirements are.
Right, but you, if you say that you know the requirements, then all the information should be quite straightforward for you to compile and provide as part of the application.
Yes, but there's continually new things coming.
So
nothing ever gets ticked off.
Right.
So we're never told, yeah, that's enough information on that. Right. We're just given new topics. and then they're brought up again months later.
But does that
things
include,
that we thought had been concluded?
Does that include, for example, the fire safety information, which has been ongoing for a number of years across the UK and is a requirement and has been for a number of years?
No, we started off trying to get the fire information progressing 20 months ago, and we were told that nothing's been available. We've waited months for the previous the previous building control officer to get back to us, and we've not had any useful information over several months.
Okay, I appreciate that. The committee's not privy to the private discussions and conversations that's been going between yourself and the officers. We only have the information that's in front of us. And the information that's pertinent to me is that there are several issues that have been listed quite clearly and specifically, both in committee back in September and committee back in March, as part of the report, that to my knowledge, sir, that you've attended these committees and have heard the committee's deliberations and are therefore aware of what the committee's expectations are. Yet we're sitting here and there's still the information we're waiting for is still not available.
Well,
do you not think there's a certain amount of responsibility on your part to provide that?
Yes, and I'm trying to get clarity on what's required. 38 hours prior to the last committee meeting, we were given new information and new requirements. That wasn't presented to the committee. The committee was told there's no new requirements, but there were new requirements, and that's a jumbled mess.
Okay, I mean, again, I'm going to. Yeah,
sorry.
I think that's fine. I think I've heard as much as I need to hear, but we've already agreed to the continuation. So thank you.
Yeah, I think this will be decided over the next couple of months. Hopefully, we'll be coming back here, and hopefully, we'll be able to finish this business. It's went on. It's been a long time for the committee, for yourselves, a lot of expense. We understand that, but thanks very much for your deputation. I look forward to 2 months' time discussing this again. Okay, thanks very much for coming. Okay. Bring in Mr. Henderson.
Thank you, Convener. I think some discussion took place quite quickly there, but it was just to confirm that there is general agreement of the members of the committee with the recommendation at paragraph 6.1. And Billy Kerr, I see you've got your light on.
Thank you, Mr. Henderson. That was one of the points I was wanting to clarify, because I don't think we have agreed that yet. But I'll formally propose that we go for the recommendations of the officers 2 months. However, a caveat to that is, will 2 months be long enough? Just taking on board what the applicant says, or the applicant or the agent says about going to fire brigade, building standards, back to fire brigade, back to officer, and the amount of time that will take. And I know that the line that Councillor Sinclair was taken, and I agree with him that the applicant and the agent has a responsibility to get the information required. However, as Mr. Broadley has already stated, we have been lacking in building standards officers, because I think we lost 3. So at the point, it's them that's left have got to deal with all the work. So I see the frustration for the applicant. However, Mr. Broadley's come in and says that we've got officers in place now. Hopefully that can be rectified going forward. But my question is to either Richard or Stephen, will 2 months be enough?
Thanks, Billy. Stephen.
Yeah, that was what the applicant had requested. So they had, I would suspect we would probably come back about May time. I'd be hopeful if they do get the information in. They seem to be progressing it with building standards. I should point out they did actually put a report in over a year ago to Building Standards, and they did get a full report back. They just didn't respond on it, and Building Standards were actually going to withdraw their application until we got involved with them directly and worked with them to try and take them forward. So, but since the previous committee, obviously there has been capacity issues with Building Standards, but as far as I'm aware, they are progressing it at the moment with them. So I would be hopeful that that information could be forthcoming to us within 2 months. We would then assess that, so I wouldn't expect it, as I say, to come back to probably around about May time to committee on it, just given run-in times and assessment times from our point of view as well. But we'll work directly with the officer and Building Standards to try and get it progressed as quickly as we can.
So to answer Bailey Kerr, you're in 2 months will be, yeah.
I think at the moment, yeah, it seems to be progressing that way. So as long as there's no major delays from information coming to us, then hopefully that should be enough time.
Okay, thank you. Bailey Kerr, happy?
Happy with that. I'm thinking about the applicant agent and our officers as well. And I didn't want us to plan to fail as a committee and as an authority. And I think Councillor Sinclair's question is very, no, his question is his questions to the applicant is very pertinent regarding the information. If they are unsure about the information or what details is required, I'm sure our officers will highlight which information, and if it's in plain layman's terms, if that's what it needs to be, well, hopefully that's the way forward for all parties.
Thank you. So, sorry, oh, Richard, sorry. Mr. Broadley.
Thank you, Convener. Just to reassure Bailey Kerr, the Building Standards posts have been filled. They're in direct engagement with the applicant and their agents. They're in direct engagement with the case officer and planning. We think that's a reasonable timescale. There's obviously a chain there between the applicant coming to Building Standards and the Scottish Fire and Rescue Service, and then back to the applicant and planning. So, but that's why we've put that timescale in. We think that's reasonable. However, things can change and we need to get into that process, but we think that's a reasonable process, hence why it's in the recommendation. I guess if there's any changes to that, we would then be in a similar position to where we are now, where we would come back to committee, and we'd either give a view if that was an unreasonable request, or we'd hit an impasse, we'd come to a recommendation, or whether we'd come back with a further extension. But I think currently we think that's a reasonable timescale. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Broadley. Stephen?
Yeah, I was just going to say to Councillor that we can work with the applicant agent, obviously, for any information. I think the point he keeps raising in regards to new information is because we keep learning that he's done new things in the building that require consent and permission. Hence why we keep going back asking, you need to include that within the plans, etc. But we can provide any information that's needed to the agent, but it's up to the agent, obviously, to then provide that to us.
Thank you very much. So we have a continuation, a motion for continuation. Do we have a seconder for that? Councillor Forrest, thank you. Councillor Forrest. So we're in general agreement on this matter, yeah? Great. Okay. Great. Thank you. Okay, can we move on now to item 6, P25 0354. Stroke FUL. Oh, no. Oh, we're just going to use that. Right. Okay, so rather than go to, we have item 5, which is similar to the previous item. So will we just move on past that, accept that? Yeah. So are members willing to agree the previous decision? Yes. Bailey Kerr.
Same as the last one. I propose that we accept the 2 months time frame and move on, convener.
Councillor Forrest. Thank you. Is there anybody otherwise minded? No? Okay. Okay, we'll move on to item 6 now. Behind. All right. Which is P250354 forward stroke, if you will. For Asteris Property Limited, alteration and repair of vacant building at 144 Bowness Road, Grangemouth, for use as a Class 7 hotels, and which is page 45 to 62, and I believe we have a deputation from John Cooper. We agreed to hear the deputation? Agreed. Thank you. Okay. Hear from the officer first.
Thank you, convener. This application was heard by committee in November, where members decided to continue the application for a site inspection. That site visit took place in November, where members were able to view the access to the site, parking and the physical characteristics and condition of the building. This included members being able to access the building internally. No new issues are arising, and it is recommended that Planning Committee grant planning permission subject to the planning conditions at section 9 of your report. Thank you, convener.
Okay, thank you. Deputation next, yeah. Can we have the deputation? Oh, it's online, sorry.
Good morning.
Good morning. Would you like to identify yourself and your position, please?
Jan Cooper, I'm the applicant.
Yeah, if you'd like to make your deputation, please. Sorry.
Thank you.
And you have 10 minutes.
Thank you. I bought this property in April of last year with the idea of restoring this derelict property back to its former glory and creating an apart hotel style business. I'm self-funding this project through personal savings. I'm looking to help to contribute towards the local economy by bringing this property back into use. From the outside, you could say that the building looks usable, but as the council members will have seen from the recent visit prior to the Christmas, the inside is completely stripped back to the bare walls, flooring and exposed brickwork. Therefore, I'm conscious that a lot of refurbishment work is required, and I'm committed to bring this property back to life, as I believe there's been several planning applications over the years, but none of these have been followed through on. I've developed a few properties over the recent years myself, but none, and have the skill set to project manage with local trades and builders to bring this property back up to the required and compliant building warrant standards for operational use. As mentioned in the prior planning meeting, for which I'm sorry I was unable to attend, this is not for HMO purposes, nor contracting with any local government bodies or organisations to house immigrants. I believe that was a potential concern for the locals, and understandably so, given it's been prevalent in news over the recent months and years across the UK. It is solely to bring this property back to its former glory and life and have operating as a small hotel and business. The concept of an apart hotel today, which is individual self-contained catering rooms, is a popular choice for both workers, businessmen and women, and travellers alike. With it being a smaller property, there will only be 6 rooms, and so the impact on increased traffic flow, which I think has also been called out previously, will not be extensive, and I do not see being an issue. I removed the side fence as requested and took a video to show the safe passing to the left of the property, which allows access to the rear car park, the video of which was shared with the council and committee members. Many of you may or may not know there is a similar property operating a short distance up the road, which also contains 6 self-contained catered rooms and has been operating successfully for both contract workers and tourists since May of last year. I recently spoke with the owner of this property, who confirmed that there is a need for such type of short stay accommodation, with them seeing near full occupancy since summer months through to the end of last year. In terms of the security and the day-to-day management of the building, I do not see this being an issue, as I will ensure that the operating model is set up for success. There will always be 24/7 support, and I would employ local cleaners and maintenance support staff that would be attending this building on a regular day-to-day basis. I myself also will be attending frequently to ensure the smooth operational and running of the business. For the aforementioned reasons, it's therefore in my best interest, subject to planning, to bring this building back into use and operate and make it a successful operating apart hotel business, bringing something to the Grangemouth community and economy. I remain at your disposal for any questions that you may have, and my apologies from my agent and architect who was unable to attend today's meeting due to a conflict that he had, so apologies for that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Cooper. Are there any questions to the applicant? No. Sorry, Billy Kerr.
Just a quick one where Ms. Cooper mentioned about taking the fence away in a video. Is that something that, because I've never seen that. Have we got that?
We do have it.
Because that was one of my concerns
right.
When we visited the site. I put my car up to the fence, and I thought we would struggle, but I would like to see that video in operation if it's possible, convener.
Okay, can we show that just now? Thank you. See. Okay, thanks very much. Everybody quite happy of seeing that? Yes? Okay. Any other questions after that? No? Thanks very much, Ms. Cooper, for your deputation, and we'll now move on to the officer again. Julie? Any questions to Julie?
Sorry, thank you, convener. I was just that was a really good point that you raised, councillor. It's just to say, in addition to the applicant submitting that video, which is really helpful, I understand that the roads team carried out a further site visit and took some measurements. I don't know if you want to bring the roads officer back in briefly at this point.
Certainly. Who have we got on today? Gary?
Yeah, morning, convener.
Morning.
Yeah, Julie's correct. That's why our roads development control team again inspected the site, they measured the site, and it was found to be around about 2.4 metres. There is obviously a slight bow in the wall, as you may have seen in the video, but I'm sure that can be easily rectified. So we're pretty happy at the moment with the access as previously confirmed at the last committee, convener.
Okay, thanks very much, Gary. Any questions to carry on that? No? Okay, any questions to Julie, to the officer? No? Okay, do we need to go to debate on this? Any questions? Any remarks? Birika?
I don't know about debate, convener. However, we've got to take in cognizance the amount of objections that were submitted by local residents who have concerns regarding the development, and I don't know if the submission by Ms. Cooper has alleviated any of the concerns. However, probably a question, if I may, convener. So, this at the moment, that building is in a class. Is it for a class hotel?
Thank you, convener. So the history of this building is quite complicated. As you'll see in section 3, the site history section of your report, you'll see that there's been various planning applications on this building going back to 1991. 1991 it was changed from a guest house to a hotel. It was used as a hotel. There then proceeded various applications, of which I was officer in 2007, 2018, 2019, 2020 and 2023 to change the building to various residential uses. None of those have been implemented, albeit there has been some demolition and stripping out activities which the applicant refers to. During that time, the building in its current condition, we took the view with this current application that actually the use was abandoned, and that was explained at the last meeting. That's where that an existing use couldn't be reignited without such a degree of development, which would in itself trigger the need for a planning application. So those sort of refurbishment works in themselves would require the benefit of planning permission. So at the moment it is, in my view, an abandoned use. This application is for the renovation of the building and it's change of use to a hotel. There is, you'll see at point 3.7 of your report, there is current permission for the change of use of the building to form a dwelling house, a class 9 use, and that's an extant planning permission. So even if this application was approved today, either of those permissions could be implemented. I hope that explains the actual use class of it at the moment.
Thank you very much, Julie. I can remember when it was Ashley House and had a couple of pints in it at 6 o'clock in the morning when they were allowed to legally do that coming off night shift. But it is hard to put up a case to vote against this application, taking into consideration what Ms Cooper said and what our officer Julie has already stated. I think the site visit was advantageous to see the context of the building. It is a derelict building, but you've got to take into consideration the concerns of the local residents, which were many. But thanks, convener.
Thanks, Viola Kerr. I think most of the objections were on the fact that it could be used as an HMO, and I don't think that is possible now, as the Westminster government has agreed that they won't use hotels anymore for having immigrants to live in. So personally, I think the main objection doesn't happen anymore. Sorry. Aye. So we'll move back to Julie again on the question.
Thank you, convener. So you raised the point a lot. I mean, we had 80 odd. Apologies. Many of the objections, and there was a lot of objections for what was quite a small scale planning application. A lot of those objections related to the concerns that it was going to be for, housing, immigrants, or if it was going to be used as some sort of HMO or temporary sort of transient accommodation. At the last meeting, we discussed that a bit. I'll just quickly go over the definition of an HMO. The actual design and layout of this building would not allow it to be licensed as an HMO, and that's just to focus on a couple of points. That's where it's used as a main residence. A person's only a main residence, and there's with HMOs there's some sort of shared accommodation, so you tend to see shared bathroom accommodation. You will see shared sort of television rooms. You might see areas where they can do laundry, and that's not the case here. We've got 6 self-contained ensuite bedrooms. I'll just quickly give the use class definition, what this application refers to. So it's a Class 7 hotel, which includes boarding houses and guest houses where there's no significant element of care. And a hotel is generally a building which provides overnight accommodation to paying guests, and it's primarily for visitors and travellers and is not their permanent residence. So hopefully that gives the committee some comfort today. Thank you.
Thank you, Julie. Any more questions to Julie? Richard?
Yeah, it was just very briefly for committee to add into Julie's clear definition there between HMO and the application that's before members today. It was also to draw members' attentions to one of the conditions in section 9.1, number 3. The hotel hereby approved shall not be occupied by any one person for more than 28 days in any calendar year. And I think that also adds into the clarity that Julie previously provided and gives a time bar there as a condition should committee be minded to grant approval as per the recommendation. Thank you, Convener.
Thank you, Richard. Margaret Hansel. Oh, a minute.
Thank you, Convener. I'll keep it short. It's just around fire safety. Unfortunately, I didn't manage to the visit. I just wondered if the concerns I raised last committee had been resolved regarding what I asked about the fire safety issues on the site.
Thank you, Convener. Fire safety will be considered and standards implemented as part of any related building warrant application. It's not a planning function to agree fire safety measures.
Thank you. Councillor Onslow, happy? Yep. Councillor Colley?
Thank you. And I don't have a particular question, but I do want to make a comment. I think that this is, in the scheme of some planning applications, feels relatively simple with fairly clear conditions of granting planning permission. I think the model of having a park hotel is fairly common across many areas in Scotland, and I think as officers have made clear is very different to an HMO or any other type of hotel for long stay. So I think it feels to me a relatively straightforward application. I think the information from the applicant around availability of herself in terms of managing the apart hotel, but also in terms of local cleaners and maintenance being on site daily. I think that kind of resolve some of the things that the questions that I'd had in my mind in relation to the premises. But as I said, I feel like it's relatively straightforward. I suspect but we may or may not be at the point of saying this, but I will just note that I would propose that we accept officers' recommendations to grant planning permission.
Thank you, Councillor Colley. Have we got a seconder for that? Sorry, Councillor Forrest.
Thanks. I can only agree with my colleague, Councillor Colley. I would second her proposal.
Is anyone of a contrary position? So do we agree? Agreed. Thank you. Do you want to read it? You all right? Okay, item 7, of course, is being agreed to be continued. So we move to item 8, which is for a P/21/0566/FUL for Avanti Homes and Calendar Estates. Erection of 228 dwelling houses with associated infrastructure, landscaping and engineering works at Mydup Farm, Glasgow Road, Derry. Pages 105 to 120. Report by Planning Officer Kevin Brown.
Thank you, Convener. Yes, as you say, this is a major application seeking detailed planning permission for the erection of 228 dwelling houses on land at Mydup Farm, Glasgow Road and Denny, with vehicular access proposed to be taken to the site from the new Denny Eastern Access Road. Carly, if you wouldn't mind sharing the proposed site plan, please. Yep, you can see Denny Eastern Access Road forming the southern and eastern boundaries of the site pretty much, with the access taken off the new roundabout that's already formed on the Denny Eastern Access Road there. The application is before members today following a call-in request by Bailey Buchanan to allow members to consider matters in relation to schools intake, NHS services and road safety. Members will see in section 4 of today's report that there are no objections arising from the consultation process. Members will also see that from section 4 of the report and within the policy assessment that a variety of developer contributions are requested. These contributions are summarised fully within the Officer recommendation in section 9, but you will see there that these include contributions towards schooling, NHS capacity and towards recouping costs of Denny Eastern Access Road. The application has generated 4 representations, 3 in objection and 1 in support of the application. The points raised are set out in paragraph 6.1 and addressed in full in paragraph 7b4 to 7b10 of today's report. And in terms of policy assessment, the site is allocated for housing within Local Development Plan 2, and the proposal is assessed as being in accordance with the development plan. The Officer recommendation to committee is that committee should be minded to grant planning permission subject to the agreement of a suitable planning obligation and subject to secure the developer contributions and to conditions outlined in the report. Thank you, Convener.
Thank you. Have any questions to the officer? Billy Kerr.
Thanks, Convener. With regards to if I'm reading the report right, Kevin, with regards to the bypass, then the deer, they're contributing £2 million from just this development. That's good. That's good. So I've seen in other reports that's came forward regarding nursery provision. Is there no nursery provision required? I know there's for Denny High School and Denny Primary School. Is there no nursery provision required for this? Or I think the Roman Catholic schools is at St Pat's. Is there no requirement for any of them?
Kevin.
Thank you, Convener. Yes, there is no contribution request for those aspects. The education consultation response confirmed that the 2 areas under pressure is Denny Primary School and Denny High School. St Patrick's Roman Catholic School is the the pupil ratios and expected yield is expecting 14 children from this development to go towards it, and the school has sufficient capacity at present to accommodate that. And in terms of nursery provision, they're expecting 23 children or thereabouts from this development, and there's sufficient nursery provision locally to meet that demand. There's a further element to this in that this area is actually within the catchment for St Modens Roman Catholic Secondary School in Stirling. Stirling, you can see from the report that Stirling Council have been consulted, and they've also confirmed that they don't request any contributions towards capacity.
Yeah, I noticed that. Probably my last question is, when you had the map up there, where in comparison is it to Denny High School? Because I know the area pretty well, but I couldn't pick out where that development specifically was.
Thank you. Yeah, Denny High School essentially sits due north of the application site. So at the top of the plan, you've got some open space there. That's essentially playing fields and so on beyond the red line boundary.
Hertfordshire playing fields.
Hertfordshire playing fields, yeah. And then just immediately, it's just off the plan, but immediately north of that is the high school site.
All right, okay. Thanks very much, Kim. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Billy Kerr. Billy Buchanan.
Hi, thank you, convener. I called this in because I've got a number of issues with this development. Let me start by saying that it was just a few years ago, that we had serious concerns about the Denny High School intake, and also the issue about doctor surgeries. What's happening at the moment is that about a mile and a half down the road from this application site, there's also two major sites getting built at the moment. One of them at Denley Head, another one at Banknock, that's going to take in over 1,000 houses. Now, I'm just wondering, first of all, is Richard Teed, our MD from Education here just now, that could maybe answer a couple of questions?
Is there anything? Have you got anyone from Education?
No.
We don't have anybody, I believe, from Education on the call today. Afraid.
Okay, well, can I say that this is a major issue, this, because Denny High, you got 1,000 houses getting built about a mile and a half down. There's going to be a large number going to Denny High School. Then the other situation, which to me demands a site visit, is the fact is that we were out in site for an application which had about 50 yards for this application site in relation to a yard that was building a couple of units. And the problem there was that we were worried about the access. Now, the Denny Eastern Access Road facilitates traffic going down by Denny High School, which to tell Billy Kerr is only 50 yards for where this application site is, to a roundabout that is not fit for purpose at the moment. And I would like to say that considering the situation with no information regarding for Mr. Teed to tell us about what the situation would be if this application site would go ahead with the other two sites that's going ahead, we want to know what the situation is with the schooling. I would like a full update as well from the to find out about the doctor surgeries, what the situation is at the moment, how this would affect that. But one of the main reasons as well is that this roundabout, which is facilitating the Denny Eastern Access Road, which facilitates the Denny High School daily, and then it's going to be outside the entrance to this new site. I would like to ask at this particular stage if, first of all, we could have a site visit for this, and then that gives an opportunity for the information in relation to school intake, and also coming from the doctor's side to find out that information, because it's not available just now. So I would like to say at this stage, in terms of the whole situation, in terms of road safety, I would like a site visit. I formally move.
I'm happy to second it. Councillor Colley.
Yeah, I think given the lack of information, that lack of availability of someone from education, I think that makes sense, and I think it would be helpful to have someone from the Health and Social Care Partnership or NHS Forth Valley. It's probably Health and Social Care Partnership to talk about general practice capacity in the area and what activities underway. And I'm pleased to say that there is a contribution noted around health. But I suppose maybe I suspect Councillor Bill Buchanan has some practical questions around the access and numbers going forward. So I think having someone here to answer the questions, I think, would be really helpful.
Thanks very much, Councillor. Anyone else have any? Mr. Broadley.
Yeah, I'm just conscious, thank you, Convener. Case Officer Mr Brown has obviously had representations from education, from roads officers on the call, perhaps to answer some of the questions around road safety, and he's also had communication from NHS Forth Valley for the significant contribution in there, and it might benefit the committee to hear the case officer's view and the responses from those three, given Bailey Buchanan's questions there.
Okay, Kevin.
Thank you, Convener. Yeah, in terms of NHS contributions, the consultation response we received from NHS Forth Valley confirmed that the contribution request of £123,245 or thereabouts was being requested to go towards works that have recently been undertaken at Denny Cross in the practice there to reconfigure 3 consulting rooms, increasing capacity. And that work was done based on projected housing growth within the Denny area, and obviously this is an allocated housing site, so it's been known for some time in terms of the expected number of houses that were proposed to be provided from this site, and that as well, it works its way into the education contributions that are requested there. Whilst Richard Teed isn't on the call, he in terms of his role projections and so on. Oh, all right, that's useful. Thank you. Richard may be able to come in a second there. But also, yeah, we've also got transport planning on the call as well today. Matthew, I believe, should be on the call, who may be able to shed some more light on the traffic aspects.
So, Richard, can we go to you? To answer some of the questions on primary schools and on nursery schools, please, in Denny.
Okay, thank you, Convener. Apologies for my casual dress. I wasn't expecting to be attending planning committee today, but any questions I can take?
Well, first of all, Denny Primary School. What's the capacity of Denny High School at the moment?
Denny Primary School.
Denny Primary, sorry.
Right, okay. I need to get it in front of me, but I think it's circa 280, 290. But that doesn't take into account the modular classrooms that are required to meet the role currently. And we're planning to replace them with permanent capacity using previous planning obligations and any future planning obligations, such as those that would be attributed to the proposal under consideration today. We're also experiencing pressures in ancillary areas because of the increased role, based on current projections and the new house building that we're anticipating. We expect the role to reach a level which would require a large 2-stream primary school, and we don't have the capacity for that at the moment. We're only kind of managing because we've put modular classrooms in the school, but they're getting quite old now, and it was always planned as phase 2 of the expansion. Phase 1 was the early years campus that was put into the community hall on the site. Phase 2 was to increase primary accommodation. we did get some classrooms back from the nursery move into the early years campus, but longer term we'll need more classroom capacity within the body of the school. I hope that.
Thank you. Anyone else have any questions for Richard?
Conveners, could maybe, through your good self, sir, could I maybe ask Mr. Teed the very salient point? The fact is that he's well aware as a top professional about the major expansion in Banknock and Denlin Head, and how this is going to affect Denny High School at present, and also the projection of 230 odd houses just across from Denny High School, how he sees this panning out. Thank you.
Thanks, Bailey Buchanan. Yes, my previous answer was relating to Denny Primary School specifically. Yeah. Denny High School is also under pressure and has seen an increase in its role annually, and we expect the capacity to come under considerable pressure in coming years when all this new housing is delivered. So in anticipation for that, all volume housing developments for the last 10 years or more have been required to contribute to adding capacity at Denny High School. So far, we've had to increase the changing capacity for PE, for the PE department, and that required the conversion of a home economics room. Further on, we will need to increase the classroom capacity in certain areas, and we've done a bit of advanced work to try and identify what those areas are going to be. We have some options, but there will be a capital cost involved, and that will require us to use planning gain, and we'll have to plan this well in advance because it's an MPDO PPP school, so we do need to work with our partners, Gateway Schools, to deliver any capacity increases at the school. So with the proposed developments, you know, that you're considering today, the one at Denny Lone Head's over 500 houses, potentially up to 500 houses in the Banknock area as well, and any other smaller, medium-sized developments that are happening, collectively, they will have an impact on the capacity of the school. So to avoid the problems we've seen in the past at Larbert High School, we have got, you know, advanced plans to deal with these, and we're starting to look at those now.
Thank you. Still require a site visit, convener, because the fact is that one of the main concerns for me is and members have got to see it for themselves, is the roundabout that's there just now, taking the Denny Eastern Access Road. This roundabout is only 50 yards for the school. It's used by parents daily, and it's a really busy road heading up to Denny Cross, and I don't think it's fit for purpose. That's my view, and therefore I think it's an opportunity for members to go and have a look before a decision is taken on this. Thank you, sir.
I agree with you, Bailey Buchanan, but we have Gary McGregor online, so we might like to speak to that.
Gary, as well. I've just seen, Gary, I've got the transport assessment off you. You'd like me to speak to the capacity first before you go to the road safety?
Yeah, if that's all right, convener, Matthew Orr will speak on in terms of the transport assessment for the roundabouts, but then I can speak on the wider picture of the road safety as well.
So, Matthew Orr, Transport Plan Coordinator. As part of the transport assessment, there was a detailed assessment done with modelling for all the junctions along Deer, including the Denny Eastern Access Road / 883 Herbertshire Road, which tested a number of scenarios, which included up to all of the committed development. That includes the Broad Street development, which is currently in the planning process as well, but isn't on the ground. And that showed that there was in a future scenario that there was no capacity issues likely to be present, even with all the LDP2 developments in place. So I just thought that was worth noting. And Gary can speak to road safety.
Yep, thanks, Matthew. Through yourself, convener, obviously, similar to what Matthew said, Den Eastern Access Road in essence has been designed to take account of these local development plan sites that are in the area. The roundabouts have been designed in accordance with the guidance and legislation that we need to follow. Our roads development and control team have fully reviewed the plan application. There's been quite some to and fro with the developer, and we are comfortable at this moment in time with all roads aspects. There's no road safety aspects to our mind at this moment in time. And I think moving forward, we obviously need to conclude a road construction consent process, which will then go through a roads development control team again, just on the finer details of the site. So, in answer to Bailey Buchanan's question, like similar to what Matthew was saying, the roundabouts and the full access, the Den Eastern Access Road, have all been designed with these sites in mind. It's been fully modelled in terms of the viability, not just the road, but the regulatory, the circulatory carriageway of the roundabouts. And in essence, the Den Eastern Access Road was constructed to ensure that this development took place through the local development plan. But I'm happy to take any other specific questions as well, Convener.
Thanks, Gary. Any other questions to Gary? No. Okay, thanks. Back to Okay, then we'll pass on to Mr. Henderson.
Thank you, Convener. I'm just noting at this point that we have a motion which has been seconded. It's a procedural motion, and please correct me if I'm incorrectly interpreting anything, but it was for a site visit to see the physical characteristics of the site, including the access arrangements, and also for additional information in relation to school capacity and local NHS services. Is that a reasonable summation of the motion that's been seconded indeed at this point?
Yep.
Yep.
Thank you, Convener.
Just before we go any vote on it, we've got Mr. Flynn, Councillor Flynn and Councillor Bowes will want to have something to say on it.
Yeah. Hey, thank you. I just wanted to touch on this question about transport, because I'm not from Denny, but I have been up and down that road quite a number of times over the last few months, so I'm quite familiar with the layout of it. Now, the question I've got is with regard, particularly with the Blanknock proposed housing, am I right in saying that a lot of the children from there will actually be going to Denny High School by bus? Yeah. I don't think the Denelon Head one would be, and if they're going by bus, that would minimise, I'm guessing, obviously the amount of traffic, unless some parents want to drive their kids there. So it was really just to clarify that, because it is quite an important factor. Thank you.
You want to take that, Kevin? No.
Thank you, Convener. I think possibly it might be one for, again, our transport colleagues to answer that. This is obviously the question from Councillor Flynn relates to other applications and other sites, if I've understood it correctly, Councillor Flynn to the west there, and also possibly Richard T2 is obviously Children's Services regarding school transport and buses. But I see Gary's got his hand up, Councillor Flynn, and obviously through yourself, Convener, might be able to answer that one.
Thank you, Gary.
Yeah, thanks, Convener. And Richard's right. Councillor Flynn, in essence, yes. The answer to that is yes. So, as a boy hailing from Blanknock and going to Denny High School many years ago, we did get a bus to the school, and I believe that's still current practice, unless Richard or Matthew tells me otherwise.
Okay, thank you. That would reduce the amount of car traffic, and as well, this proposed development, I'm guessing, Convener, is within walking distance of the Denny High School, so the amount of car traffic would be reduced as well. It goes without saying. Thank you. Thanks, Convener, and thank you, Gary.
Thanks, Jim. Councillor Bowes.
Thank you, Convener. I'm going to ask a question just so that we can clear something up in my head so we don't need to mention it again. I'm not going to go against the site visit. because we don't have somebody for health here, as Fiona had picked up earlier on. However, I notice the affordable housing is only 15%. Is there a reason why it's so low there? And I say that it's supposed to be tied up with an RSL. Has the registered social landlord, has one been identified yet on the project? So there's two questions on the housing.
Kevin.
Thank you, Convener. The percentage requirement is set out in the development plan in terms of this area and what affordable housing needs to come forward from new development sites. In terms of the split or the breakdown on this particular site, the number of units proposed are 34 social rent units on the site. There's the applicant is working with Link Housing, who have been in contact with their own housing services. The breakdown from that is 23 family homes, a mixture of 2, 3 and 4 bedroom properties, 1 2-bed wheelchair unit and 10 2-bed cottage flats, including 3 wheelchair flats. And those house types have also been agreed with our housing services, and that's what's set out in the development and the plans that are put forward today. Thank you.
Excellent, Kevin. Thank you.
Thanks, Kevin. So we'll move now to, have we agreed to do the site visit? Oh, sorry. Mr. Rich. Dudley.
Thank you, Convener. It's just 2 quick points, if I may, committee. One is I'm conscious there is no NHS rep here, and that, to my recollection, hasn't happened as a matter of course in the past. However, we do have a full response from NHS, which is on the planning file, which is not, the summary is in this report. We could attach that to a future report if committee is minded to sites and come back by way of an update. And we have that full response, Councillor Colley and Bailey Buchanan from NHS, which is on the planning file. And secondly, just quickly in regard to Bailey Kerr's point about the proximity and Councillor Finn's point about the proximity of the site to Denny High School, on the very last page 120 of the report shows both the planning site and Denny High School just off the distributor road just to the north there, which wasn't on the map we saw earlier, which Mr Brown flashed up, but it is on the last page of the report if members want to, who are not too familiar with the site and the proximity to Denny High School, but it is right on the doorstep. Is that okay?
Thank you. Bailey Kerr.
Just a quick question. It's on page 116. I've never seen item 0.7. A welcome travel pack shall be provided for households. This should be produced in line with. Is this a new thing we've brought into new developments? I just wondered what it was and.
I can speak to that if that's useful.
Matthew.
Sorry. Yeah, Matthew, our Transport Planning Coordinator. No, this isn't a new requirement. It's quite a common element, but you just might not see it within the conditions because usually the developer will have provided it prior to us going to committee, so it might just not have come up within the reports, but it is something that we require of all new housing developments. And the purpose is just to give new residents an idea of their local area they're moving into and the different sustainable transport options they've got in their area. So that's kind of the purpose, is to try and establish those sustainable travel behaviours early in the once people move in.
Okay, thank you, Bailey. Okay.
Thanks, Convener. Thanks, Matthew. Matthew, if you could, offline, could you send me a copy of that online just so I can have a look at it, see what people are receiving, if that's possible?
Yeah, that's fine. I'll source one for you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Questions? Oh. And we'll get Mr. Henderson to summarise the motion again.
Thank you, Convener. Yes, the motion at the moment is by Bailey Buchanan, seconded by yourself, Councillor Kelly, and that is to continue consideration of this item in order to allow a site visit to be conducted for the committee to see the physical characteristics of the site and access arrangements, and also for additional information to be provided by officers in relation to school capacity and local NHS services. Thank you, Convener.
That seems fine to me. Happy, Bailey?
Happy, thank you, Convener.
Okay, Councillor Sinclair?
It's just to ask for a clarification. I think one of the points that was made by Councillor Buchanan during his questioning was about a roundabout. That I don't believe is part of the site. Would that be considered within the access arrangements to the site, or does it have to be? Is there a certain there's a perimeter of the planning site, but is there a certain leeway that can be given to view access arrangements? What could be considered access arrangements to that site?
Thank you, Councillor Sinclair. In interpreting the motion, I was anticipating that the access arrangements would comprise the roundabout access into the Deer and leading down to the site. And I think maybe that's just a useful clarification for all concerned in terms of what that site visit would comprise. So thank you for your question.
Any other questions before we move on? And are we happy to continue this for a site visit?
Agreed.
Okay. Great. Okay. We move on to item 9, which has already been decided it's going to be a site visit. Yes. And we go on to the next, which is item 10. Falkirk Council on-street parking space for disabled persons. Various streets, number 15. Order 20. Who's speaking to this? Craig Russell?
No, it's myself, Convener. It's Gary McGregor, Convener. So, as you'll all remember, standard process for disabled persons parking spaces. In terms of the council scheme of delegation, this decision requires to be made by committee, as there is one unresolved objection having been received to the making of the order. In terms of the relevant legislation, the authority requires to consider all objections made and not withdrawn before the order. The application was received by a qualifying person, and a suitable location was identified for the space shown within the report. This was on Gores Road in Bowness for an applicant in Redbury. One objection was received and responded to, which is also detailed within the report. The objections have not been removed, hence this report being placed before you, and I'm happy to take any questions on it, Convener.
So any questions to Craig, please? No? Okay. Just going. Are we happy to accept the report?
Agreed.
Agreed.
Yeah, I'll bring Mr. Henderson in at that point.
Thank you, Convener. Mindful that the recommendation is that members are asked to consider the terms of the report, including the objection, and determine whether the order should be made. Can I just clarify if the members wish the order to be made in terms of the decision?
Are we happy to accept the recommendation?
Yes.
Good. Agreed. Okay, thanks very much. I think that concludes our business for today. Thank you for your time and look forward to the next meeting. Bye.
Thanks to the chair.
Thank you, Vina.